All right, folks, happy Thursday. Welcome to our weekly edition of Join the Conversation. Today we will be talking SEO mechanics with one of the greatest characters in our community. Mr. David is a mentor for us. He will introduce himself in a minute. Before we jump in, as usual, I'm just going to do some super quick housekeeping on the Eureka side. Reminder that we have introduced membership. Membership gives you access to our education. When you come into the community, you can come in, use the community, you get join the conversation, you get peer support, you get group access to like-minded individuals through different groups from different industries. And you've got, of course, your mentors, like Mr. David here, who you have access to. Premium and Pro give you these additional benefits. The biggest difference between the two is that Premium is self-guided on the educational side with some Premium member office hours to answer questions. Pro members receive always on coaching access, which means that you have weekly coach-driven lessons so that you can get through the entire essentials process and get your business planning in place and executed. Most importantly, and such an important part of this conversation today, our membership includes the Growth Center. The Growth Center uses your analytics to look at what you need to work on for your website mechanics. It gives you your to-do list on what is right, what is wrong, and how to improve it. So if you are a premium member already, make sure that you register. The information is in the group. And if not, this is something you should consider if you're concerned about SEO and the functionality within your website. We have a special offer running for founding membership, which expires on June 1st. And if you join now, you can join for $199 and you will get Pro member access for the lifetime of your renewals with Eureka. If you have questions about this, I'm the girl you go to. Other than that, that's it. Let's jump in. Mr. David.
Yes.
I'm letting you run the show. So let's just kick off with the basics. I always like to start with, I know nothing. Let's talk about what SEO is. I'd love to hear a little bit from you since you're really deep into this on how it's changed. Because I think there's still a lot of misinformation out there about how the algorithms work today.
There's a tremendous amount.
And then we'll start taking people's questions. Everybody, please, this is a conversation. If you have a question, drop it in the chat and I'll call out so that we can ask Dave these questions. So Dave, let's kick off.
Okay. First of all, if I may, very, very briefly, just so anybody, in this conversation who doesn't know about me, basically my experience is 20 to 25 years working for different marketing agencies in digital marketing. So I started in the mid 90s when the internet was very new and just continued working for different marketing agencies up until about 3 years ago, really. And then in between, I also worked as an independent contractor. So I've spoken in Microsoft, I've written for AOL, Time Warner, I've headlined a few conferences. So when it comes to marketing and digital marketing, I've been around really since it began. So any question is absolutely fine. So I'm ready to get started. Marcella,
Let's start with what SEO is and how the algorithm works to determine how you're doing.
Okay. SEO stands for search engine optimization, and it's basically, in a nutshell, how you outrank competitors online. So most businesses start local. I know everybody wants to be, Walmart overnight, but that's not how it works. I mean, every big giant company that there is today started locally. They started small. So for all intents and purposes, most SEO, you want to start locally. Okay. If you look at my website, it's not local, but that's because I'm older. I've been around for a long time. I'm semi-retired. So it's not necessarily applicable to me. Okay. But for most businesses, you're going to want to start local and go from there. If you're national, obviously you're going to have a lot more competitors. Okay. Google is the #1 search engine in the world. There are Yahoo and Bing and so on, but they're a very, very small percentage. Okay. It doesn't mean you don't want to be found by them, but Google is #1. So, um, as far as Google's algorithm, I forget how often they change it, but they change their algorithm every couple of months, maybe every quarter or twice per year. And at the end of the day, the #1 way to rank with SEO is to look at what your competitors are doing and be very methodical and very organized about it. And the rest comes down to having processes and procedures that you do to create content that your preferred customer wants and needs and really speaks to their pain points. Does
Dave,
that
thanks
help
for
you get
bringing that up.
started?
So that's a really important point that I want everyone to like Dumbo ear out, right? You have to understand who your customer is and the customer personas in order to be successful at SEO. Why?
Right.
Right? Because otherwise you're slapping all sorts of garbage up on your website and you don't know why you're doing it, right?
That's right. And
So,
let me just say,
oh, how right I am, Dave. Do it, do it.
these are also called customer avatars. So if you see different terms, don't let that throw you. If I could show you my desktop right now, I actually have customer avatars that I've already created that, you take it, you download it, you fill in the blanks. So I haven't written a blog post for it yet. But you can just Google customer avatar and you can find a template to fill in.
We have
I
templates.
will say I'm a real enthusiast for being specific.
Yeah.
I am like Freddy Krueger when it comes to being organized and deliberate and methodical.
Yeah, I think, David, the mistake that people make that I see the most about marketing is they assume that they know what they're doing and they're just going to go after it.
How
And
can you?
it's impossible. You have to write it down. So
I
we
mean,
have
look, how
templates.
can you do that? That philosophy is really important, Marcella, because I call it the savior complex when I talk to business owners. You can't do everything by yourself for yourself unless you're already an expert. It's like I don't know how to do a root canal. I didn't go to dental school. I don't know how to, fix a problem with my car. I don't know anything about it. It's not going to go well. You
So
know,
there's a
my
plan,
wife
right?
knows if there's a problem with the sink, she needs to call the plumber. It's not going to go well. So you got to have a deliberate, structured, organized plan, preferably before you start.
Absolutely. So templates and definitely a checklist for what you're doing. That's why we developed the Essential series, right? It's from A to Z all the way through, but you can't just jump in. So let's just make the assumption that you know your target audience. Now you've got to go find those keywords that matter. David, how do you recommend to clients that they go find the keywords that match their audience?
It's really simple. If you're a local business, you want to look for your city and state and the type of business that you provide. That should be your SEO. Now, if you live somewhere like New York or something and you live in a neighborhood or borough of New York where there's a lot of competition, then it's a little bit different. You want to be what they call hyper local. So your keywords are almost always what you do as specifically as humanly possible, and then look at your local SEO, unless you serve a broad national audience like me. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you so
I,
much.
I see one person nodding. I don't know.
Do you have a specific tool, and preferably a free one, that you've used to do keyword research that we can recommend?
Sure. Let me think here. There's a guy named Neil Patel, NEILPATEL.com. He has a free tool on his site. And there's also a great, great company called ahrefs.com. They also have keyword research tools on their website as well. And to be quite honest with you, it's usually very, very simple. Most businesses start local. So, I mean, for example, if you lived in Miami, Florida, and I'm just using that because I live in Florida, let's say, what's a really good local business? A hair salon?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that because I have two ladies here and I don't have hair. So let's just say it's a local hair salon, okay? You're in Miami, Florida. So what should your SEO be? It should be Miami, comma, FL, and then a space, and it could be a hyphen or the up down symbol, and then the name of your company. So Miami, Florida, the name of your hair salon, or no, I'm sorry, Miami, Florida hair salon, and then the space, either a hyphen or the up down symbol, and then the name of your company
Yes.
as an example.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not rocket science, but the problem is that most small businesses, and to be honest, most businesses across the board, whether they're big or small, it doesn't matter. I've seen major law firms make this mistake. They don't know SEO. They're not an expert. They're not programmers or developers, so they don't do it.
Yeah.
I spoke at a law firm. I couldn't find them in Google Maps. This is totally true. They had no directions. They weren't listed. You couldn't find them in Google. I had to call them like an hour before I was scheduled to speak and say, how in the world do I get to your office? You guys have no map. You're not in Google Maps. You know, what am I supposed to do?
It's so
Luckily, somebody called
important, Dave.
back.
I'm so glad you brought that up. So from a local SEO perspective, making sure that you're in key directories and that you're listed in Google is absolutely important for your business.
Google My
What-
Business.
Yeah, absolutely.
If,
Once you start
yeah.
going broader, e-commerce and national, then you can start focusing on the broader keywords and not being as focused on the local side. So
Marcella,
yep.
sorry to interrupt you. This is my bag. I just really get into this topic. So I'm sorry to interrupt you. But I mean, e-commerce, I don't know. Most people don't use e-commerce. Okay. I have doctor's appointments coming up and so on. None of them use e-commerce. Most businesses across the board don't use e-commerce, which is crazy because I always ask people, what is it about money you don't like? You need money. Why wouldn't you want to process payments through your company website? If you're a hair salon, let people book appointments through your website. Let them pay you on your website. It will feel good when you get money in your bank account. Trust me.
Absolutely.
It just makes life so much easier. And there's so many different ways to do it now. And if you work with a professional, they should be able to do this without any problem at all.
So true, Dave. So Dave, let's broaden out a bit and talk about keyword research, because I see a lot of folks, you mentioned competition. You know, I was that early on in the day. I went in and I looked at my competitors and I picked the most popular keywords.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is you are already competing with page one results, probably, depending on your business, from folks that have been around for a very long time, potentially, and time does matter to Google, right? And number
Load
two,
time. Yeah.
they've probably spent a lot of time building a lot of content for those, let's call them primary keywords. Dave, let's talk about long tail keywords and how you've used those to help people rank faster using these long tails. So what does that mean, and how can people use other keywords to still get traffic?
Let's break that down in the form of a story if I can. And here's a brief story, okay? 100% true. When I lived in Denver, Colorado, and I was extremely active in digital marketing, I was working with clients all the time, okay? I had a competitor call me on the phone once, and he used some harsh expletives, but I knew who he was. He said, you so-and-so, so-and-so, how did you get to be number one in Google on the first page of Google, outranking big corporations in downtown Denver? How did you do it? And I didn't even know I was, because I wasn't checking every day. It's too stressful for me. But he said that I was number one in Google in Denver, Colorado for Denver web design services. So he said, how'd you do it? And I said, you know what I did? They're spending thousands of dollars every day on paid advertising, which is also called PPC, big corporations. What I did was I was logging into my site on a daily basis, and I was updating the written content, the text in my website for my company. The website is still up to date. I just don't update it because I don't live in Denver anymore. But I was updating that website on a daily basis. I was adding more and more information about Denver, Colorado, about website development, web design, WordPress boot camps that I was teaching in the Denver area. I was posting different events I had through LinkedIn and Eventbrite and on Facebook and on and on and on. I was blogging every day and doing all these workshops and networking events, everything, and posting it on social media like crazy and linking to everything. So after doing that for about a month, Google looked at my website and said, wow, this guy's website is the happening place when it comes to Denver, Colorado and WordPress web design. So when we talk about tags, Denver web design, I was number one in Google for that, right? I also had another website, which was completely different. I think it was called denverweb.us, I think back then. But I added different links, different content to the same Facebook events and the meetup groups and the boot camps that I was teaching at the Denver Tech Center, on and so on. So I was on the first page of Google for like 3 different websites, all for Denver web design. And I remember saying to my friend who had called me and said, you so-and-so, how did you get to be number one at Google? I said, that explains why I was getting so many phone calls. Every 15 minutes, I'm getting a new phone call. I'm getting a new email from somebody. But the thing is, when I stopped doing that, blogging every day, I cut back on the events and everything. Maybe a few weeks later, I stopped. I kind of slowly cut back. The phone calls and emails also gradually stopped.
So David, I think the key thing to note about that is the more often you're updating your pages, the
Right.
algorithm in essence is trained to go back to your site to check it more often.
That's right. As an
So
example, I don't blog on a daily basis. I mean, I'm different. I'm in a different place. I'm not chasing after customers like I was before. But as an example, my wife has a blog. Of course, I made it for her, right? So her website gets more hits, more visits, more traffic, probably than any other website I've ever seen in my life. But she blogs like every week, and her blogs are super long, and she has like at least 5 links to all these different sites that rank high in Google for her related topic. She also includes videos in everything that she writes. So her website gets hits from all over the world.
thank you, David. So the key takeaways here, team, is the amount of content on your site, which we talk about at Eureka, matters, right? That being said, as solopreneurs, we don't have the time to always be updating long blogs. What can we do? We can refresh our site. Remember to identify, right? Not every page is as important as the other one. Identify the most important pages in your marketing funnel and make sure that those pages are the ones that have that valuable content that David's talking about.
That's called evergreen content.
Yes, that those pages are the ones that link to the secondary pages where you might have product pages and conversions.
Yeah,
Sorry.
That's okay. The reason they call that evergreen content is because it's like nature. It just keeps blossoming. It's green all the time. Looks like those curtains behind your head, Felicia, whatever that is. Yeah, it's So marketing content that just keeps on giving over and over again that you can use and reuse is called evergreen content. So for example, my own website, everybody asks me all the time about budgets. How much is this? How much is SEO? How much? How do I budget? So I wrote a super long blog post about budgeting and digital marketing. So I'm referring that to people like every day. That's evergreen content. I include links to that in almost every blog post I write. So that's evergreen content. Those are the top posts that you would refer people to over and over again. So one of the common questions people ask in content marketing or SEO is like, what should I blog about? What do I write about? I don't know. Yeah, you do know. What are the problems that your dream customers have?
Goes right back
Right,
to that persona, folks.
right, right.
Right back to that persona.
Right. So for me, I spent a lot of time analyzing, who were my ideal clients. And I realized who they were. They had been in business for at least 5 years or more, right? Because statistically, most businesses are going to unfortunately fail very quickly. So businesses that make it past the 5 year mark, statistically, according to the U.S. Small Business Administration, are going to do a lot better because they've learned from their mistakes. So I learned from trial and error and from experience my ideal customer avatar, that they had been in business for 5 years or more, that they had at least more than one physical location, that they had more than 5 employees. Um, that they had a marketing department, so they had somebody who could work with me, right? So someone who could implement whatever I suggested. So that was my customer avatar of who I wanted to work with. So I would talk to people, and if they didn't meet that customer avatar, a lot of times I would say, listen, God bless you. I wish you the best, but you know what? That's not my bag. You're not really the type of client I usually work with. I wish you all the best. I could refer you to someone else or whatever, but it's not usually worth me getting up to speed to try to work with them.
Yeah.
Because
And Dave, what's important about that, everyone, is again, the content that answers
those
those
questions.
questions is what you should be writing about. Now,
Yes.
within the content, going back to those SEO mechanics, your headlines, right? So you can write a really long piece of content. What matters in SEO for Google, right? You've got your end user, you want to write for your end user, absolutely. But from an SEO perspective, Google is looking for certain tags. David mentioned that. So within your articles, make sure that you've got headlines and subheadlines with the keywords that matter, because that algorithm is just a machine that looks for, Latrina was on before, and she's got a lingerie shop. So what the keywords are that are important to her business are the ones that need to be in the headlines, not only in your blog posts, but on your primary pages that we talked about that you are focusing on. Okay. So making sure that that keyword strategy trickles into everything that you're doing has to become a part of that checklist that you are creating as an entrepreneur. As David said, if you don't have a plan, this won't work. Okay, so create that checklist. It says, are my keywords in my headlines? Did I tag my website my blog post as a header 1, header 2? So the technical aspects of this are very important to Google. Okay, and if you don't understand how to do H1, H2, H3 tags in your website, Google it. If it's Wix, if it's Squarespace, if it's WordPress, it's really, really important. Dave, thank you for sharing that. He just shared some of the best plugins out there. I think one of the things I'll mention is, I think Dave and I are both WordPress fans.
I'm actually typing that up right now.
Awesome. So those of you that are starting out with Wix because you're early in your journey and you're afraid of WordPress, or you don't have the investment to develop those out yet, please make sure that you're using Wix and any tool the right way from an SEO perspective. They all have tagging abilities. They all have the ability to clean up your metadata, right? So I'm going to bring back the conversation to that. Starting out, Dave, how do entrepreneurs avoid what I've seen and I have personally cleaned up as a digital marketer so many times, which is I go run an SEO report and there's no tags, there's no metadata, there's nothing
Right.
going on. How do we start?
Well, the reason that is not there is because it was never put in the first place, or else it would be there. The problem is, again, most businesses, what they do is they look at the website as like an item on a to-do list. You know, I need to get bananas, milk, peanuts, you know, whatever. It's on like on a to-do grocery list. And you have to really think through and put all your ducks in order first before you begin, preferably. So if you have a website and it doesn't have any SEO, you're going to know. And how can you tell? Because a lot of people don't know. How can you tell if your website even has SEO? And the simple answer to that is to go to the tab in the upper left-hand corner of the browser window that you have and just hover the cursor over that. And if you see the word home, then basically your website is telling Google that the name of your website is home. Google doesn't know what that means. That's nonsense. If you go to my website, for example, and you hover over the tab on the left, what is my SEO? You're going to see digital marketing solutions. Then you're going to see, well, what's the website name? DMS.blue. Okay, that makes sense to some extent, at least. So that's why how you can go into the website and you can use different plugins, or you could work with an expert, or you can do whatever technique to add SEO. But then you have to go through your website and kind of tinker with it and change everything around, and it can take a long time. And I'll tell you, as someone who has probably around 8 to 10 client websites now, even now that I'm semi-retired, you can make changes to your company website with the SEO. It doesn't mean Google's going to pick that up and index it right away. It could be weeks, could be a month or two.
Yeah, especially if you're not updating your content often, it just won't know to
Yeah.
come back.
And it could, yeah. And whatever it is that you're doing, like if you're blogging daily and submitting stuff on Facebook and promoting things, it can screw that up too.
Yeah.
So you could be like, well, the link has changed or the SEO is different now. People are going to see different things when they go to it. So that's why it's so important to get it done first if you can.
So I couldn't agree more. It's got to be part of your checklist. Now, if you've already started and you have a 15 plus page website, right? And you're like, oh crap, now what, right? Let's go back to what we said earlier. Marketing funnel and personas. Which are the pages most important? And don't tell me 5 per persona. Don't tell us that they're all important. Your website is in essence a pyramid, right? That supports from awareness,
the funnel,
consideration to conversion. So what are the most important pages? Make a list of what they are. Please tell me you're starting either with a homepage or a landing page that ties to your audience, and start with those. Then look at your blog and see which blog entries, evergreen content, right, best support those topics, those keywords, and then start with your list. Start at the top and work your way through. If you get 3 pages done a week, you're doing great, right? So there is an opportunity to go clean up your SEO using the keywords that we've identified, using the pages you've identified as important to those key personas in your marketing funnel. And you should make a list and set a target for 2 cleanups a week. Dave, let's talk about the images on websites and their importance to SEO. How a lot of people don't know this. How do you make sure that those pictures count for something?
Well, first of all, when you write a blog post, usually you don't need more than 1 or 2 pictures in the actual blog post. because Google, at the end of the day, is a giant search engine. It's looking for text. It always was that way. And no matter what anybody says, it always will be that way. Text is what it looks for primarily. So even on my own blog pages, where I have images, if I may have one featured image, then I might have one or two infographics to illustrate a complex point. Now, let me see, there's a great little free tool called Mini PNG that will take your photos or images rather, and will make them a little bit more user friendly so they don't take so long to download.
Tiny
So
PNG?
do what?
Tiny PNG?
Yes, I
Got it.
can't, I don't think I can minimize this screen.
I've got it. I'm going to
It
drop it
shows
in.
it shows a panda bear.
Yep, it's the panda. I love
Yeah.
that site. Yep.
So, for example, let's say I'm going to write a blog post, and I know that I want to include an infographic image that's going to be like a pie chart that's going to show some type of complex idea, and I'm trying to simplify it. My website's full of images, right? So before I'm going to post it on my website, first of all, I want it to be as small as possible so it will load more quickly, because the slower a website loads, the lower it's going to rank in Google. Bear that in mind. Don't go crazy with your images. So, and then when you upload your image, you want to page load time matters. So whoever's typing that is correct. That's right. So yeah, you want to have images. They look nice, but smaller the better. And so you could submit it to Tiny.
Dave, I just want to make sure I'm being clear. We don't mean small like a thumbnail, right? We're talking about the
No.
weight, like the actual image, technically the image
Right.
size. So
Right. Don't
not
go
saying put
bananas.
any pictures, right?
Right. Don't
We're
go
just-
bananas and add an image that's like this big. Here's a picture of my, my hike in the park. Okay. People don't need that. They need it to be, the size of no bigger than maybe my thumb or something on a regular page. If you look at my website, dms.blue, I have pictures of myself as a cartoon character and infographic images. And I set it up so that if people want to see it, they could click on it and it will enlarge.
Good. So the key thing I want to make sure we address, everyone, is that not only is the image size, think of it as a weight, right, is important, but that you change the name of your images before you upload them.
Yes.
Okay, this is a big trick I learned. Before you upload into your site and create another big mess you have to clean up later, name the pictures the way you want them to be found. Text matters, as David just said. So if you're selling lingerie, you want your image to say, pink lingerie women, and this is just an example, and then the name of your brand, right? So that Google, when Google indexes your site, the name of your image is actually part of the code that it's reading. And depending on what website you're using, you can also add a description to that image inside the tool. Yes, that matters. You can save yourself a lot of work if you're super organized about how you save the name of your images. When you download from a website, if you purchase from Shutterstock and got rights to an image, change the name so that it matters. All of these things give you SEO points, okay? Now, so we talked about setting up your website. We talked about a plan for cleaning up your SEO if you've already started and you're feeling overwhelmed about it. We talked about image size. We talked about naming your images. Now, David, you mentioned inbound and outbound links. Let's talk about those for a minute.
Sure. Where do I begin? I actually have outbound and inbound marketing on the first page of my site, where I talk about the differences between inbound and outbound marketing. And I think the majority of marketing today, I think, is inbound. Um, I think that's where, you're the business and the customers come to you, I believe. Um, so, I mean, you have outbound links, you have outbound links or links in your blog that go to other people's sites, usually what they call scholarly links or authoritative links that are on the first page of Google for your search results. Inbound links are links that go to other pages of your website and blogs that you've written.
Thank you, Dave. I've got a couple questions in the feed that are super interesting coming through.
Sure.
So the when I started doing digital marketing, I remember, and this goes back to one of the questions I wanted to bring up, which is black hat versus white hat. So if you go out to find an SEO agency, please be careful. Some of the link shops that are out there will try to sell you old school strategies where somebody goes out and creates, making up numbers. Oh, we'll create 10,000 inbound links to your site from high value traffic. Bullshit. Okay? That is no longer something that Google wants to see. All right? If you do something like that, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, those black hat cheater strategies, Google's gotten too smart for that.
Google will actually delist your website, which means push it down. I've actually worked with clients and whatnot who have done that, even though I tell them not to. They have a cousin or some nephew who tells them this is a great idea and they go do it. Yeah, if your website loads too slowly, okay, or doesn't work on modern phones, meaning responsive design, Google will delist it. They'll push it down the search results.
And guys, this is all in the growth center. So I'm going to hammer that through because it was like my biggest nightmare is that any Eureka member doesn't have their website mechanics down. I will come find and hunt you down if your website mechanics aren't right. SEO we're having a whole topic because all of these little nuances are harder, right, to get right. But your website mechanics, I will come slap your hand like nothing else if you don't have those down at this point. Okay?
Ask me now. Ask while you can.
Yep.
There's nothing that, you can ask me that I'm not going to have some kind of an informed, viewpoint on.
And there's a great conversation happening in the chat about video. Liz brought that up, and please make sure you're reading that. So Dave, I want to go back to inbound and outbound links. I've got a couple things I want you guys to know. So one, as far as strategies go that I love bringing traffic to the site, we haven't talked about social media because that's off site and it's not necessarily SEO, but when you are creating blog posts that mention other websites, right? And you can go tag those brands or those websites. And I'm not talking about Apple, right? Apple's not going to care if you mention them. I'm talking about really a strategic way of doing it. Felicia, what business are you in?
Digital marketing. I'm very.
What? Felicia.
I'm taking notes. If you see my notes, I'm like.
Felicia, you walking in my backyard?
Felicia, you stay off mute, young ladies. Never mind. Sandra, what business are you in?
My husband and I own an electrical contracting business in Dallas, Texas.
Great. So there are probably tangent businesses that you could point people to in your blog that says, while we were working on a certain job, we saw a great installment of shelves that included, the electrical, I'm making up topics, but we love the work by at such and such a company in our local business. You've mentioned this company, you wrote about it in your blog. Maybe you've included a picture of this beautiful woodwork shelf that you did the electrical for, and you mention them on Twitter, you mention them on Instagram. Do you think that those folks are not going to come click on that blog post and give you some traffic? that engagement matters, okay? The engagement that you get from Twitter specifically is in the open web. So those links that people pay attention to, Twitter is actually, I'm constantly fighting with my husband about why I don't use Twitter more. I used to use it all the time because I ran a whole company that based its technology around Twitter. So when I need Twitter is when I want to push something out there, tag folks, and get that attention back because it is an open web platform. It is not closed down like Facebook. It is not shut off like Instagram. Twitter is open. So that is a great way to use Twitter to distribute content, particularly if you want to engage it and have it indexed for those hashtags and keywords. Dave, do you have other tips like that that we can think through from an SEO and traffic perspective?
Can you please, I hate to say it, but could you please repeat the question? Because I was typing a response in the chat.
No, that's okay.
Like a naughty boy. I should have been doing that.
So I find that one of my tips for distribution of content is Twitter because it's open.
Yes.
Right? Twitter gets indexed. And so unlike Instagram, where you're in a closed environment, when you push out content on Twitter, it's being indexed. I remember when that happened in the digital marketing world. It was like a bomb went off of happiness for all of us because Google was indexing Twitter.
Absolutely.
Right? And amazing distribution tool for your links.
Absolutely. And actually, let me tell you a way to put that on steroids, okay? Take that approach. And I'm not saying I do this. I can do it, but but this is what you can do. Is go to a company like Hootsuite or Buffer. And then what you do is you list your blog posts. You can list comments. If you have a podcast, like I have a podcast, every time I promote it on Twitter, I use Hootsuite or Buffer. Let me backtrack to take blog posts and infographic images. I have Dave's quote of the day, and I put it all through Hootsuite or Buffer, and then it automatically will schedule it so that it's released through all the social media channels, including Twitter, and it does that for me. So I can book that out for like the next 90 days or 6 months if I want to. And I have a podcast. I've got like 350 plays on just the first few episodes, just by promoting it through Twitter and just saying, hey guys, if you like intelligent, discussions with interesting people, check out my website or listen to this episode. Or if you're a struggling freelancer and you have a question, go to this link. And I've gotten, so much play from doing that. So absolutely, Google will index Twitter. I'm not sure about Facebook.
No, so Facebook and Instagram are closed platforms, right? If you share public on Facebook, it's still sitting within Facebook. Right? It's indexing your group name. So if your group name is well tuned to your keywords, and there's a search for Facebook groups for blank, you'll get that index. That's public, but everything inside, I don't believe it is. I'll have to triple check that because I'm not as deep into it as I used to be. But Twitter. Now let me just also caveat that with one thing, and then I'm going to move into our next key topic because we've got 15 minutes left. Folks, I'm not saying do all the social properties. I'm not saying that if you're not going to do Twitter 1,000% right, you should be marketing to your audience that you're on Twitter. What I'm saying is use it as an SEO and traffic tool. That doesn't mean you've got to put the little Twitter thing on your website if that is not if you have not identified that that's where your audience is, okay? So if you're selling to moms and pops and you don't think that your audience is on Twitter, don't market that on your website, okay? But use it to drive traffic as almost a tool rather than see what I'm saying? Like that difference is really important. So I'm not saying go use all the social properties because Twitter, no, but use it as a tool. Okay. All right. I want to make sure that we're covering key topics. And if I haven't covered something you guys have been dying to know about SEO, please tell me. Okay. So we talked about images, we talked about keywords, we talked about a very focused effort and how to organize your SEO plan so that you can either start really well or clean up, okay? Two key things. We talked about the platforms and how WordPress and maybe Squarespace, which I'm pretty sure have really good tools. Wix, but they're there. So pay attention to where they are and make sure that when you are setting up your web pages, that your metadata, your page descriptions are properly done.
Yes.
So that you don't get hit on that later, okay?
Yeah, and you can go back and you can update and make changes, but it just takes a lot of time. I mean, like I said, my wife has a blog and she's got like at least 200 blog posts, at least.
Yeah.
And she didn't know about SEO when she started because she's my wife. What am I going to do? And, actually, after she got done with it, she said, why am I not ranking? Why is nobody looking at my website? I said, well, is it okay for me to tell you? And we looked at it. She didn't have any SEO. So I said, well, that's fine. Let's start with the oldest blog post first and then work our way back to the most recent. Then we look at the actual content on the pages of the website and make sure that everything reinforces SEO, which is who are you trying to reach? So we did that, or rather she did it because I trained her how to do it. And then I just said, now it's on you. Do 5 pages per day because with 200, you can't get them all done in one day.
Yeah. There's so much good chatter going on in the chat itself. And here I'm like you, Dave, I was like, what? Okay.
There's so much to talk about.
Yeah,
but it's really important not to focus in on the tools so much as the big picture.
The
It's like,
and the planning.
Right. I'm really big on that. I'm really, really, really big on that. It's just like life. I mean, if you don't know what direction you're heading in, then you're going to end up going in all of them or none of them. Or like dating, if you don't know who you want to be with, you're going to be with everybody or nobody.
Yeah.
And either one isn't going to go well.
Yep. Divorce. So we've got a structure. We have a methodology. You've got a checklist to make sure you've done your SEO or that you have a plan to clean it up. You're going to learn whatever tool, whatever website builder you're using. You're going to make sure you know what the SEO tools are for that. You're going to make sure you've got tags across your pages, your images, right? So we've gone through these checklists. So we've talked about how to get people into your site using Twitter as an example for getting that site indexed for key content. And Dave has said this in so many ways. I just want to make sure it's coming through. If you don't update your site often, weekly at a minimum, you are wasting your time. Okay, it's not create it, leave it, and go. The more you update your site, the more you learn and you look at your traffic patterns, the more Google will come back and in essence give you credit for that work. Okay, so if you don't have content, I think we say this in every join the conversation. Should I start a blog? And I'm like, what are we doing? The blog is there as another way for you to communicate to Google that your business is up, running, and active. Content, as Dave just said, is king because that text is what communicates what you're doing to your audience and to the search engines. We always say here at Eureka that your website has 3 audiences. The people you're selling to, the tech companies that drive people there like Google and Facebook and Instagram and all those guys, and then you. We've talked about the first one quite a bit. We've talked about the second one. And in essence, we've talked about the third because if you don't know how to use your tools, if you don't know how to do SEO on your site, your website isn't serving you well. Okay? Dave.
Does anybody have any other questions I can answer? I don't know how much more time we have.
YouTube videos.
Yep.
Can you talk to us a little bit about how YouTube can affect or help SEO and digital strategy?
Yeah, I don't know what that big ding was
Oh,
there.
that's me. I'll go shut up my platform.
To do Q&As with your audience. Yeah, absolutely. I have Q&As on my podcast where people can submit questions and then I write a blog post about it and so on. So you're asking about SEO with videos,
Hmm.
right? Yeah. So that's what I was saying. If you have a website and you have the correct SEO for your website, which usually in most cases is going to be local, then you're listed in Google My Business. Then you have a video with the same matching SEO, which goes to who else? Google. I mean, it's YouTube is owned by Google. Hello. So what are people going to find when they go to Google and they type in Miami, Florida hair salon, and then maybe the zip code or something to make it even more specific? They're going to, and if your business is listed correctly, they're going to find it, because 9 times out of 10, the other hair salons in that area, they won't do that. So the video SEO should match your website SEO, should match the SEO for Google My Business. If the SEO matches all of those and you blog about what's going on in your area and you tie it into what you do, it can tie it into local events. There's no way anything can stop you. You're going to move up your search results just the way I did it when I lived in Denver, Colorado. I didn't even know I was moving up on the first page of Google because I didn't want to know. It was too stressful for me. But I was just started getting all these phone calls one day.
I love that. So to be clear, the title of your video, the description in your video, right?
Right.
Those are the things that David is talking about. What is this all about? As David said, step one, what's the plan, right? Having a plan, having a checklist will help build this out for you. Okay, so does anybody have any other questions around SEO and how to create an SEO strategy that works for your company? The things that David has talked about today matter whether you're a local business or I think it was Pamela who asked about a global business, right? These tactics all stack. They all stack to create the right information so that Google is convinced that your business does what you say it does and that it's focused on the things that you want people to understand that you're focused on. Dave, is there, what's the biggest, besides not doing it, because we've talked about that, what's the biggest pet peeve that you see that you have to fix over and over again when you work with a client?
Number one is just people jumping in without really knowing, what to do. And, it used to make me feel sad when I would hear stories about, the businesses where, nobody's calling me. I know we're on a limited time here, but there's so many stories I could tell you about this. I had a lawyer call me once and she was going out of business. She was losing everything. She was selling her car, everything. Nobody was calling her. And she was a brilliant woman, but nobody was calling her. And she had her free do-it-yourselfer website. And nobody could find her in Google because she wasn't already an expert. So how's she going to know what her SEO should be? She didn't know how to program it into the website. She didn't know about blogging or what to blog about, or maybe she didn't have the time to do it. So it was very, very sad. So that's the most common thing is you jump in without the previous experience and just start throwing things up at the wall like crazy, hoping that some of it's going to stick. And that's just not the way you start a business. And you have to really be honest with yourself and just say, look, is this a hobby that I'm doing for fun? Or is this a real business that is hardcore to me? It's meant to support a family. I've been in positions where I was working with clients and doing workshops and boot camps, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to pay the rent that month. But I'll tell you what, never was it an option that my wife and I were not going to be able to make that rent. That's not an option. So I was going to do whatever I had to do. If that meant teach 5 more workshops, 10 more boot camps, create another doggone website, whatever I had to do. And I learned a lot from that. But you want to have a deliberate, organized, structured plan, preferably before you start. If most people start without a plan, then you have to go in there and deconstruct it. So side hustle is different. Side hustle is a hobby. It's what you do for fun. It's something you're trying to get going. When you can support yourself or support a family and you're making profit, that's a business. Okay, when posting a new blog or updating it, does day or time also play a factor? You want to preferably schedule them consistently. So like the first of every month is when I have a new podcast come up. What that does is it trains Google so that on this day, at this time, this guy comes out with a new podcast. People who listen to it will expect it and want it. I had somebody contact me on Facebook and say, when is your new podcast going to come out where you answer my question? And this is 100% true. And I said to him, look, young dude, wait until the first of the month and you'll get your answer to your question. And I really did say that. He's a really cool guy. He knows who he is. Okay. With blogging, it's better to have a steady schedule. I'm not a big fan of trying to blog every day. I don't think you can do it. I don't even think every week, because it depends on your schedule and how much, fire in your belly you have. I think starting out, you could do once a month. Then if you feel this is really fun and easy for you and you can keep the momentum going, then maybe go to twice a month. But don't start something that you don't think you can keep going.
That's huge, Dave. But remember that updating your site can be minor things, right? Every week.
Have a backlog to a blog post. Absolutely. Yeah.
So you can update a blog post, you can update a page, but Google needs to know that you are there, right? So, but I can't agree more. If you can't do it right and you can't do it consistently, just don't start it.
Right. So
but if you don't start a blog and you don't have content, without content, you're not going to get SEO. So plan it.
Right. So posting a blog post, does date or time play a factor? Sandra said not when posting. Sandra, I think you're wonderful, but I don't agree 100%.
What I'm saying, what I answered and I said, it doesn't really matter if you post it at midnight, right? What's going to matter with your blog is then if you post every Monday and you post at midnight, let's say, that you then make sure you consistently do the distribution, right? So that you post it on your Twitter or on your Instagram. But if nobody knows it's there and you post it at midnight, that's okay. What Dave is saying is make sure when you publish, right? When you push it out on Hootsuite, when you push it out, it's consistent. And then the time matters. It does matter if you post on social media or you're sending email on a certain day at a certain time. You have to know your audience at that point. So Dave, I just wanted to clarify that.
Right. And with WordPress, I don't know about Wix because I don't use Wix. I'm kind of a snob when it comes to website development. Okay. When it comes to WordPress, you can schedule it so that the ideal way to do it is to say, I've got 6 months worth of blog posts already written. And every month a new blog post comes out on the same day at the same time. Then I'm using Hootsuite or Buffer to distribute these automatically for me so I don't have to go crazy, and it's going to do it for me. Then if you find this is really easy, I could do this twice per month, then it's even better, right? So my wife has it down to a science now because I've drilled it into her head. So she knows she'll look at the calendar. I haven't written my blog for this month. So, okay, well, go ahead and do it. But I've got all these different topics I want to blog about. Hey, babe, that's great. Write them right now and just schedule them every month. So now you're covered for the next 6 months. For my podcast, I've got the next 4 or 5 months already blocked out.
Same with us internally, like we've got our membership spotlights, we've got weeks ahead and they're just ready to go, right?
Right. Yeah.
So-
Let me say, I when I was a kid, I grew up near a lot of military people around military bases. And I learned a lot from them before I started working at marketing agencies to work kind of like in a military way. So you have the top down chain of command. Everybody knows what they're doing, why they're doing it. You know, everything's in a certain order. So is my time running
It's
out?
time. Yep, Dave, it's time. So Dave, as always, I love your character and having you on with us. It's fantastic. I think 6 hours probably wouldn't be enough to get so much knowledge into our community from you. So we will have you back again. David, there's a download that you mentioned to me
Right.
here. If you can drop the link in, please.
Can I minimize the screen?
Yeah,
Okay. And hopefully you guys won't see what I'm doing here.
no, you won't. You're not sharing your screen. You're okay. So
Wonderful.
I am going to randomly select 5 of you to send this to. So give me a day, and if you don't receive it from me, then I highly recommend that you take a look at not only Dave's website, but to this PDF. It's a downloadable PDF that really dives into SEO and digital marketing, and it's got some great tips in it. So stay tuned. Hi, Lise. So stay tuned to hear from me. Please, if you need help with these things, come to our office hours. I have office hours twice a week, folks, Thursday nights and Fridays. Just search in programs for my name or for office hours and you will find it. Do not guess your way through it. We have folks internally that know all of these different systems. I can drag someone along into my office hours. I can ask Dave to join us if I feel like I need to, right? Our mentors are amazing. You're not doing this alone. We will see you guys for next week's Join the Conversation. And David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for joining me.